Hello everyone and welcome. Today we at the Proving Grounds are entering the world of Dragon Quest. Again for a very long time for me, since the last time I played a mainline entry of Dragon Quest. Dragon Quest 11, an age of elusive... echoes of an elusive age. So this was originally a PS4 PC title, and we are playing the quote-unquote definitive edition that's on the Nintendo Switch. This game was also on the 3DS in Japan, but that was, as far as I'm aware of, not localized in any other region. That came out with the PS4 and PC version in Japan. But I've only played the very beginning of the PS4 version when the Switch was announced, and that's the very little experience with any of the other versions I have, so I basically take any comparisons to the other versions with a grain of salt. So let's get into this. If you're not familiar with Dragon Quest, what the fuck are you doing here? No, I'm just saying. If you're new for some reason and you don't know what Dragon Quest is, it is a traditional JRPG. And by traditional, I mean traditional. The mainline Dragon Quest games don't usually do tons of new things. They try to deep root themselves in the nostalgia of the series. And that has continuously led them to very good success, but has also garnered criticism from people wanting evolution. So if you love traditional JRPGs, you're in for a ride. If you want something weird and wacky, then you're probably not going to find it here. So let's get going into this. So you start as generic hero in a small town, 289420, aka Cobblestone. And you find out you're apparently destined to save the world. Hey, when I said these were traditional, I said traditional. As in stereotypical. Yes, they usually don't have the most fantastic openings. Anywho, you go to basically see the king to see that what you need to do to help save the world, and the king decides, like, you're evil, so you need to go to jail, and you break out of jail, and you go on your long journey to save the world, find out what's going on with the king, and you get wrapped into a crazy plotline of insanity. Like, seriously, this, for a Dragon Quest game, like, this has some crazy wild twists later on in the game. Like, early on, it's very traditional in what you would mostly see in most of the other Dragon Quest titles, but it gets some pretty nice twists later on. So it is a traditional turn-based affair with a few differences depending on if you're playing in 3D and 2D mode. Now, the 3DS version of this game in Japan had chibi 3D in a 2D mode that was like basically a 16-bit-esque art style, and the Switch version has that 16-bit retro mode in it. But when you pick one or the other to switch between the two, you can't just like switch on the fly and you just be like, okay, I'm right here in this exact spot in the other mode. It's like, it doesn't do that. It assigns a chapter system of the progression through the game, and you can start at the beginning of any chapter from your current one to the past. And if you go to like a past one, like let's say I'm at the end of the game and I start from chapter 1, the very beginning of the game, the majority of everything you have carries over, aside from, you know, very unique key items and important things to story progression and thing. But like all the kind of basic stuff that you can buy in shops and stuff will carry over if you want to re-experience the whole game or do a chapter or something. So it's not the best situation switching between the two modes, but you're going to have to choose which mode you'll generally want to play unless you're going to hip-hop between the two. Once you select your corresponding mode in the Switch version, like I said, the retro mode's only an option in the Switch version, in the 3DS version. you'll carry on the way. Now, in the 3DS version, Pad told me once you get to a certain point, you have to choose between the Chibi 3D and the retro mode and that. So if for some reason you go down that route, keep that in mind. You don't get both of those modes at the same time. But once you pick your mode in the Switch version, you go with 3D, which is what you get in the PS4 and PC versions, or you can do the 2D mode. You'll carry on your quest and meet your companions and things. Your companions come throughout the progression of the game, like pretty much any typical JRPG. You don't get to start with them, you get to meet them. Usually ones you start with them are the ones where you like get to make your party members. Now, if you're hoping for like a job system in 11, you're not getting a job system, sadly. I'm a fan of job system ones, but what you get isn't necessarily bad, though I have slight criticisms of that. So you get your fun little party where they kind of all basically fit the molds of different classes that have existed in Dragon Quest. But essentially what you have is a skill tree system in this game. Let's use the main character, for example. They use swords, great swords, sword mastery, and luminary branches of their skill tree. That's right, they break up weapons. Later characters, like, say, another one with swords, knives, and bullwings, heavy winds, and whips. Different characters have different access to different weapons, so if you like familiar with Dragon Quest VIII, different characters have different masteries of different weapons. Luckily, you can exchange your weapons with items in their inventory in combat, so if you wanted a character like switch out from a boomerang to swords for some particular situation, or you got into a boss fight or something, you're able to do that. Now the characters do have individual inventory while we're on that real quick. So if you're not used to individual inventories, Dragon Quest has always used individual inventories for your party members. So any equipment, items, and stuff you need to keep organized in them. Now I kinda didn't do a very organized inventory in my playthrough. One reason out of laziness, but another one because I wanted to actually give some challenge to the game. Like when I first played the game, I was gravely concerned because you gotta keep in mind, while there is Dragon Quest X, which is an MMO, but that only got to come out in Japan. The last Dragon Quest game we had in America was Dragon Quest IX on the original DS. So it's been quite a while since we had one, and many games keep being made easier and easier these days. So I was greatly concerned about this game being vastly easier, especially with the fact that you can switch out party members in mid-combat, similar to Persona 5, but on top of that, you can also do it when they're dead, which was something you couldn't do in Persona 5. Hell, if everyone in your party dies, the people alive in the back will take their places automatically. And I was like, I'm kind of feeling the difficulty spikes here, like, as in, like, it might be too easy and hand-holdy. And oh boy, while the beginning does give you some ease, like early save and recovery points, I can tell you with great confidence, the later game does not disappoint in the difficulty. It does ramp up, and they do stop handing you free heals and shit in later dungeons, unlike some of the early ones. So they just do it to probably help any of the newer players, which is appreciated, because sometimes some people who are especially not familiar with RPGs may just get a little overwhelmed if it's too hard immediately. So I mean, that's a fair thing in my opinion. The later portion of the game does get harder. They still do offer some, I think there were 2 save points people pointed out in the Switch version that didn't exist in the original versions. So they did add some, at least one for sure. I know there's one in the midpoint Pad specifically said didn't even exist. But still, even with that, I'd say a lot of the fights were still challenging. Now, between the retro mode and the 3D mode, it is important to note that combat is a little different, even though they're still both turn-based classic JRPGs. While in the retro mode, it is turn-based by agility. Everyone gets ordered, the order is made, and you get to pick their special peps, which I'll get into a second, at the beginning of combat. In the 3D mode, again, it is based on their agility, but there are also chances of them getting multiple turns in one cycle. Well, in the retro mode, you'd get each of your characters would get a turn, and then the enemies would get their turns. The special bosses that may have like 3 turns or whatever will get their turns in there and that. While in the 3D mode, like say the hero might get 2 turns in a row by either a chance of agility and that. I'm not sure the full out mechanic, but it does not happen in the retro mode. So there is a bit of a different pace to the games in the 2 modes. But it is something more people nitpicking the differences are going to really notice. If you're just casually playing through the game, you're probably not going to really notice any huge significant differences other than obviously the aesthetic differences there. Now, peps. Now, if you're familiar with Dragon Quest 8 in 9, there was a system where you basically did a kind of Super Saiyan-y kind of thing to boost your attack output. Now, what happens in here, that's basically what this is. It's like a Super Saiyan thing, but you don't have the option to power it up. It's 100% random. Later on, the main character gets the ability to just do it whenever the fuck he wants, but everyone else, all you can do is increase the odds with items and parts of their skill tree. There is no way outside of 2 in-game items to trigger people's peps. And outside that, the normalcy of it is it just triggers randomly. Like, when it's their turn, there's a percentage chance every time that they could pep. Now, peps are both interesting and kind of bloated at the same time. I really liked it a lot, the animations and stuff with peps. In the 3D mode, they have very nice cutscenes and interactions with the characters because, well, you have individual peps, you have team peps, where 2 or more characters all participate in doing a move. And a lot of these are very flashy, funny, and really bring out the goofy silliness personalities of each individual character when participating in them. And many of them are powerful and very useful. But the bloated part is there's also many that felt underwhelming and not so useful. Obviously, there are moves that will be situational, like, having like a big heal all move trigger or do shitloads of damage at the cost of all your MP as like some final attack because your party is getting devastated and you're like, this is my final chance to maybe push through and win. But there are a lot of moves that just have very little... They have very poor damage compared to other moves. And to be fair, some of it will come from how you evolve your skill trees, because many pep moves are given. Some will start automatically, some you gain through characters learning certain moves, and once both characters or all characters, if it's more than 2, learn said moves, they'll get that pep, and a few are learned through the progression of the story or side quests. And I can tell you, most of the ones that involve more characters are usually the more powerful ones. Many of the duo, like 3 to 4 character involving ones are usually much more powerful than a lot. Like, I'd say at the end of the game, a good handful of duo and basically all the singular ones will just basically all the gone. They're not really that useful anymore, and it's a bit of a shame because there are a lot of pep moves. There are a lot of pep moves. But the 2 things I hated the most, that a lot of them just kind of don't really get used because their damage output and everything just kind of wanes in the backside. And I mean, that is kind of normal for some moves to obviously become less useful over time because you're getting more powerful moves. I mean, that is normal, but it feels a bit of a shame that there's a lot of moves that you'll end up not using at all. It can be a shame. But the other thing I really do hate is how peps will random. They are just random, and I don't really like that. Like, in stuff like Trace, Limit Breaks and stuff, and like Final Fantasy 7, 8, using the... I can't remember what they called it, Overcharge, I think? I probably got that wrong, though, in Dragon Quest 8 and 9, where they can power up and that. Like, that's all stuff you either get to see the progression of, or have some control in it. And that's very important to being able to strategize. Like, you know, if you run into a boss and you get your fucking ass handed to you, it's like, okay, I need to get, like, my super moves, like, ready and shit. So you can kind of get an idea of that. The only thing you can really do in Dragon Quest 11 until you get those in-game items, I mean in-game, like, you're talking about the very tail end of the game, getting the items that let you trigger going into pep mode. And they are very expensive. They are not cheap. But aside from that, the only other thing you could do is put a pepped character in the back row. And until you got more than a full party, which is 4 people, you got 4 people in your battle. Until you get more than 4, you can't put anyone in the back row. So it's a little limiting. Once you get everyone, you'll be able to keep characters in the back that are pepped for special moments like that. Now, to be fair, I didn't do that too much in the game until, like, the super boss kind of content in the game. But I felt like the randomness was a little too RNG. Like, I like some RNG, of course. I mean, RPGs have lots of RNG mechanics into them, but I just felt like that was a little too RNG for my particular taste. But that's subjective. That's just me. Now, if you're playing in 3D mode, you can actually see the monsters on the field and engage combat, doing a forced hit, doing a little damage, and getting a chance of being the first one to hit and such. In retro mode, it's all random battle weight, and I can't really speak about the encounter weight. I only played a little bit of the retro mode, but we will get to talk a little bit more about that when we get to the 3DS content that exists on the Switch version. So, when you're playing in the 3D mode's combat, you do have a few different battle mode settings. You got one that kind of does the traditional kind of first-person kind of look. It's a little weird, in my opinion. The newer way the battlefield works in the 3D mode is you have kind of a third-person view, and you can actually move around the battlefield when you're on a selected character. Now, this has literally no functionality in combat. You can use it to do like goofy pictures and things, run to the outline to flee and stuff. There was no point to being able to move around combat aside from maybe silly photos or just be like, haha, I ran up to your leg and poked it. There's, like, it's kind of I mean, aside from, like, maybe taking photos, like I said, I don't see it being a big aesthetic, but no matter where you move your characters and stuff, they'll do their moves and everything, like, normal and that. Though you can, interestingly, like, move, like, Neo characters, your party members, and they'll have dialogue. They'll say it's, like, in defiance and things and that. You know. Something nice and simple. It's nothing too world-eating. Speaking of character conversations, I know I keep bouncing around. We got a lot of things to talk about, man. This was a really good game, man. It was really good, so there's still be things to talk about. So speaking of conversations, if you're a pretty hardcore Dragon Quest person, you're probably familiar with Party Chat. Now, as a Western person, Party Chat has came and gone in different games. Like, for example, Dragon Quest 4 on the DS. It had party chat in it, but it was removed in the Western localization because it was too much text and they didn't want to waste time localizing it, which is a shame. Luckily, in all versions of 11, party chat exists. And party chat is a little bit more interesting on the Switch because your party follows you on the Switch, which for some reason they didn't do that for the PS4 and PC versions. Your party members are not seen following you on the field, and I'm not quite sure why that is, considering they're on more powerful hardware. It's amazing what they were able to actually do on the Switch version, while offering even more content than those versions. But any of your party members following you, you can talk to them literally on the field. In every other version, including this one, you can also bring up a sub-menu and into your party chat option and have all your party members present in front of the current field area and talk about their ails, their feelings. They'll generally, 2 or 3 of them will generally tell you about what the hell you're currently doing, and they can react to things that, like I had a Puff Puff scene, which is a notorious comedic scene that happens in many of the entries. I actually had several characters comment about that scene after I had it happen. So, if you really want to know a lot more about your characters or just hear their opinions on things that happen, pop in the party chat or hop on over to them if they're in your party on the Switch version. You can get some pretty humorous dialogue. All the characters were pretty well beloved, and I'll get into that. There's so much. Now, in the retro mode, all your party members follow you like a traditional JRPG. But like I said, that was originally only in the 3DS version, so again, that doesn't apply to the PS4, PC versions of the game. Yikes. So, there's no real, overseeing map in 3D mode. The limited amount of 2D mode I did was the beginning and the end of 2D mode when it comes to the main story, not counting the 3DS content, which is all in retro mode. So, I did get to see the overworld in retro mode at the end when we fought the boss at max level after I did everything else in the game. And in the 3D mode, you have these big field areas that go to interconnected points and not an open world where, you can't just, park your boat wherever and shit. In the retro mode, it's more of a traditional Super Nintendo, overworld. So you'll be able to just walk across lands and boats and things. So it's kind of actually interestingly different, because that was something I was a little disappointed with 11 in 3D mode, is that it doesn't really have a big overworld. It just has loaded chunks of areas that connect to each other. So it does give you a bit of a different flavor there. Now, though, when it comes to some customization options, you actually get costumes. Now, some of these do work in retro mode, but some of them also don't have changed sprites. From what I can tell, the new outfits that are in the Switch version do not have sprites in the retro mode, but take that with a grain of salt. But all the characters have very lovely costumes. Many of them are throwbacks to other characters in the franchise or classic job classes throughout the franchises and characters within 11 itself. And many of them are very nice. Ladies have lots of varying things of lovely outfits, magey outfits to questionable outfits. But all the guys also have slight outfits, all fitting those categories too, so you can always fashion your favorite characters how you want them to look heroically or look sexy. Make your characters look the way you want. Heroically attractive or awesomely cool. Whatever works your boat. Now the alchemy part. I was not a fan of the alchemy part when it got introduced in Dragon Quest VIII. Because you basically, a lot of it was encouraged to just randomly fucking try shit. Just randomly try a lot of things. Now in Dragon Quest XI, you get recipe books. Chests, bookshelves, quests, just get them handed to you. You'll get Westpies, and you can pull out your fun-size forge anywhere, practically, in the Switch version. To my understanding, if I never quickly pad said in the PS4 and PC versions, you had to go to a campsite or that allows you access to the fun-size forge. But they let you access it anywhere, even mid-dungeon. I never specifically, for sure, that pad's like, no fair when I pulled it out in one of the in-game dungeons. And to make an outfit for Jade, he's like, no fair, you can't do that in the original version. You're cheating. So, the alchemy pot mechanic of crafting stuff, because it's not alchemy pod, it's a little forge, but I mean, it's the equivalent of you take a bunch of crap, you mix it together and make stuff. You get what I mean. It's the continuation of it. It's the evolution of it. But you get a recipe book, so, and you can look at anything you have available. It'll tell you all the stuff you need. You can even just... Now, this, I'm not sure if it's in the PS4 PC version. I don't remember anyone commenting on it, but, like, if you don't have the ingredients, and they aren't, like, ultra rare ingredients, which certain ingredients are, but if they are basically buyable ingredients, they will let you just straight out buy them there on the Switch version. I do not know if that's a mechanic in the base games, so that I can't really speak on. Can't speak the forbidden words on that. Can't. But making stuff was pretty fun. I'd say a good half the gear, I'd say I made. Not everything, though. I probably did buy, maybe it was a bit less. But I did make a good number of gear, and there is a lot of nice outfits you can only get through crafting, so. And items are not very annoying to find. There are little sparklies on the map, enemies drop them, some stores sell them. Like I said, the Funtime Forge will let you even buy some. When it comes to the in-game super whale kind of crap, though, some of those you have to find what the hell drops them in that and do a little farming now. They're not going to hand you the best shit in the game that easily, you know. Some of it you have to work for. Some of it you do get handed in the final dungeons, though. But it's all a little mixed around through everything. A little crafting, a little searching, a little questing, and a little, just a few chests here and there. It's a little bit of everything. A little bit of everything. A little bit of everything. Yes. Now, time-wise, most Dragon Quest games outside the original trilogy, like 4 and on, usually are well known for being pretty lengthy games. Like, most of the modern titles are pretty well known for at least clocking in a good 100 hours for most players, if not more, depending on whether you're doing everything, looking for everything, talking to everyone, you know, depending on what you did. I clocked in like 170 hours, and I did pretty much everything aside from one new super boss that was added into only the Switch version. So I'd say not too shabby, considering like Dragon Quest fucking 7, I put in over 200 hours into that one. Dragon Quest 7 is a really, I still think that's like the longest Dragon Quest game ever, honestly, there, in my opinion. There's so many fucking places in Dragon Quest 7. And speaking of so many places, that actually brings us to some of my criticism when it comes to 11. It's just... The sad thing is the world is kinda small. When we get into spoiler territory, I'll kinda talk about more about that, but in general, you'll kinda go through the whole world pretty fast. Now, they do a pretty good job of making the most of what there is. I mean, it's not like super small, but I honestly feel like there are a lot of other JRPGs that have had vastly bigger worlds. But it could just be me. I just feel like the world is a bit small. There isn't a bazillion towns. There isn't a bazillion islands and continents and stuff. it just feels like it was pretty small and kind of was cycled. But like I said, we'll go more into those elements when we get into the spoiler section. But that is a bit of a criticism I have on top of the pep system. But these are minor. The characters and the lands you visit are still very nice. But let's say if you have backtrack syndrome problems, you might be a little more bothered by it than I was myself. That's a bit subjective there, my friend. A little subjective. Just a tad bit. Anywho. So, what are some of the... What are you getting different from the Switch version, you might be wondering, specifically, that like I said, I'm not necessarily the best person to ask this, but I'm aware of some of the things. So, they added a new Super Boss, the 3DS content that used to be exclusive to the 3D content. Now, there is something missing out of that content. Now, if you're familiar with Dragon Quest IX, it had a grotto system, which will basically randomly generated dungeons that you could get really cool shit in, or even encounter formal bosses of Dragon Quest games. I think every final boss from 1 to 8 was actually in the grottos in 9, I believe. But the grotto system did not carry over to the Switch. That's actually blocked off by NPC in the 3DS content of the game. But you get 3DS content, you get a new Super Boss, there were new outfits in the game, and, let's see, off general in my head, you get to switch between 3D and 2D mode. There's the chapter system. As far as I understand, this chapter system didn't exist in the 3DS version. Once you got to a certain point, you had to pick between the chibi 3D models or the 2D 16-bit retro mode in the 3DS version, and you can't ever switch between the two, as far as I understand. So you could switch between the two modes, though limited to chapters, the current one you're in to any past one you've been to. So it's, like I said, the switching between the two things ain't perfect, because, like, say, if you're at the end of one particular chapter and you want to go to 2D mode, you gotta redo whatever the progression in that is. It's also interesting to note, actually, when I did go to 2D mode for the final chapter to just see what the final boss looked like, all in 2D mode, was all the chests and everything respawned. So you could kind of abuse some things like that, possibly, too. I don't know if you can get duplicates of Willy Upon items, because I think most of those Willy get taken away. Like I said, that's probably a question for somebody who's more familiar with all versions of the game, like actually played all versions of the game. Like I said, I've only played the very beginning of the PS4 version, so fairly limited on that knowledge. But you do get your bang for your buck. Now, you might be wondering, what are the drawbacks for the Switch version? Because it is weaker hardware, especially when you're comparing it to the PC version. What are you forgoing? Now, to my understanding, in the previous versions, not counting the 3DS version, in the PS4 and PC version, there was a first-person mode where you could pop in the first person. I don't know if you can move in it, but that does not exist in the Switch version. Why it's gone, I have literally no idea why it's gone. I don't know if the photo mode is in the original version either. There is a photo mode where you can pose people and take some pictures of the landscape and that. It's a little limited. Like, I've seen MMOs with vastly better kind of photo mode things, but it does what it does. You can do some poses and kind of randomize where the characters are positioned. You don't really get to choose where they are. But I don't know if that's in the original version, so somebody might want to correct me on that. But I know the first person thing doesn't exist. And obviously, there is a bit of quality loss. Now, to me, it's like not like you have to literally be seeing the two running by each other to really know this. being a anime game, cell shading and everything, gives a great art style to even the more retro and blocky of graphics. I mean, come on, just look at anything cell shaded. You look at Jet Set Radio. That fucking game was blocky as hell. Now, you're not going to notice a lot of blockiness on Kalos, but if you look up, there's like a very good comparison video. To me, it looks like the original versions had a lot more bloom, which I don't miss. And you can notice, if compared properly, some slight polygon points. Like, I remember a Pacific scene that one comparison video showed on the top of the dog at the beginning, the top of the head. If you compare the two, you can notice there's a little teeny weeny little point at the top of its head. Well, in the PC and PS4 version, perfectly smoothed and rounded. But, I mean, you have to, like, to me, you have to really nitpick the differences. It's really amazing, the conversion port they did here. Now, it is on the Unreal Engine also. Now, Dragon Quest X was the first time Square Enix themselves developed a Dragon Quest game. Fun fact for those who aren't very familiar, Enix never developed a single fucking game. Like, I mean, they obviously had input, but Chunsoft made, I believe, Chunsoft made 1 through 5, then Heartbeat made 6 and 7, then Level 5 made 8 and 9, and 10 out of mainline entries, not counting spin-offs. Spin-offs have some different tales to them. But out of the main line, Dragon Quest X was the first time Square Enix developed the game themselves, and continuing that trend, Dragon Quest XI also was. Now, 10 was made in some, I think they called it the Crystal Flame engine, while, like I said, 11's in Unreal. And I can't really tell it's Unreal. Usually, in my experience, you can usually tell an Unreal game pretty easy. They did a really good job with the game, and being on Unreal probably helped porting it to the Switch really easy, probably, because you know that's usually compatible with most crap. But really, if you'd have to nitpick the differences, honestly, really, I really think the Switch version is definitely, if you have a Switch, PS4, or PC. You know, I would recommend the Switch version over it myself, because it has more content. You've got the portability if you make use of any of the portability. The only reason you should go for the PS4 or PC versions, really, is either cheaper price, because now they're older. I don't know what the PC version goes for. You know, PC prices can be all over the place because of sales and shit. But the PS4 version is pretty cheap. You can get for like $19 and shit. Very cheap for a game. You're gonna get 100 hours easy, if not more, depending on how much you choose to pursue in the game. But the Switch version, I definitely recommend. While you can argue the definitivity, because there is still content that doesn't exist in it. Like I said, the Grotto system from the 3DS version's gone. And you could even argue the chibi 3D art style that's in the 3DS version is also not an option on the Switch version. So, definitive to me would mean, like, having everything. So you could still argue its definitiveness, but I mean, considering all the versions, it has the most crap, and it has stuff that ain't in any of the other versions. So, unless something changes in the future, which I can't really imagine them doing much more anytime soon. You know, maybe, you know, like in 20 years they might do some new version. You know what I mean? Because, you know, they do a lot of, I mean, fuck. Every Dragon Quest up to 8 has had one, if not multiple. I mean, there's so many versions of Dragon Quest 1, 2, and 3 now. But I mean, even 8 and 7 have had newer versions. So, you know, maybe down the road there might be some newer definitive version years and years to come. But right now it's the most comprehensive version of Dragon Quest. Now, with the 3DS content, you'll have to progress the game to a certain point, and you'll get to a point where you can access the 3DS content. The 3DS content allows you to access small little time portals that go to every mainline entry game, from Dragon Quest 1 to Dragon Quest 10. Now, these ain't like the full worlds. You just get like a few select areas in each one. They're very small areas, and that is a bit disappointing because I would have loved to be able to explore a little bit more. There are very few that are actual dungeons, but they are still nice nods to the overall series. They each have their problems. You gotta solve the problems that continue through the 3DS content. Once you solve all the problems in Dragon Quest 1 through 10's problems, you'll get access to a special book that allows you to access the Super Boss content that was in the 3DS version only originally. So in the Switch version, you're going to have access to 2 Super Bosses, the Switch exclusive and the 3DS exclusive. Now you might ask, do I really care about the 3DS content? Because, you know, the outfits and the Super Boss are one thing or another, but the 3DS content, what is the 3DS content? Is it something I should buy the Switch version over the more graphically fidelity of the PS4 and PC versions? That, in my opinion, I think is yes. I think there is some importance to the 3DS content. Well, I don't think it's the end of the world. I mean, if, like, you could just go read about it or watch somebody's videos on it, that depends. If you want to experience, though, I think it is a worthy experience to experience. But that is just my subjective opinion. But I would definitely go with the Switch version. It has the most content, new content. The only things, like I said, are graphic fidelity. If you're a big graphic fidelity, plus I would assume PC probably has modding, whether supported or unsupported. I'm pretty sure people have probably already done things to the PC version. But when it comes to content, if you're interested, get the Switch version. If for some reason you are super asinine about graphic fidelity, that's the only reason, along with price point, I can imagine getting the older versions for. So, Dragon Quest XI, would I recommend it? Hell fucking yes. It's one of the best JRPGs we've had in a really long time. I mean, I guess since Neo Automata and Persona 5, I guess you could say. It's really good. Really good. Especially for traditionalness. Now, like I said at the beginning of this, a lot of people did criticize the traditionalness of the game. See, to me, like, it really depends on the game, the franchise, and whether they keep doing it good or not. I don't think there's anything wrong with doing the same thing, as long as it's still vastly enjoyable. But that will also be subjectively different. Like, it was just like a week ago. I finished this game several weeks ago, but just a week ago, I did actually watch Zero Punctuation's review on this game, and he basically quitted it. He only played a little bit and quit, and that's a real shame. Sadly, you can't win everyone as much as some companies want to hopefully drown games to make it as casual experience for everyone to enjoy. But I think you'll be happy to hear that they didn't drown this in casualness. It did very well. Lots of people consider it like the best JRPG ever, which that is subjective, and that's a whole different subject matter that I would have to highly debate about, honestly. But it is really good. I've honestly not been vastly disappointed with most mainline Dragon Quest games. I generally like most of them. So, I highly recommend Dragon Quest XI if you love turn-based, traditional JRPG. If you're a fan of classic JRPGs, this is, well, to put simply, it feels like a 90s game, honestly. It's a new 90s feeling JRPG. while not like they did like different things to help adjust it a little bit. Like I said, they made some of the beginning dungeons a little easier by having save points that heal you in that, but later on in the game you won't get those as often. But I feel like it still continues many traditions, difficulty, and fun that you'll have in a Dragon Quest game. Price point, it's worth full price. While older versions you can get cheaper, I feel like you should feel no regret in being able to pay $60 for this title. Now, being a Switch version of this game, you will usually not find it on sale, as many Nintendo versions of games usually don't get big sales. I did recently see it drop down to $49. I'm not sure if it's still at that price point. Taking a quick glance, Amazon is currently selling it at $49.99 right now, so you can get a little bit of a deal on there, or you could wait and hope for it to go down. But it is important to note that a lot of Dragon Quest games do sometimes jump up in rarity over the years. Now, luckily for 11, it does, because there's an inferior version of it. The PS4 version will probably never become rare, so you don't have to worry about in that aesthetic. But like Dragon Quest 8 for the 3DS is becoming pricey. I think Dragon Quest 6, even though it's considered like the black sheep of the franchise, is pretty pricey on the DS, because that's the only the legitimate English localization, not fan translations. So, some of them have gone up prices once their lifetime shelf life went away. So, I don't know if the Switch version will end up in that situation. That's something you'll have to judge as time progresses. But I would say feel no regret in paying a large price point on this, because I would gladly pay $60 for this. Well, technically I did, because I did buy the PS4 version and the Switch version on fucking launch, so I guess I paid double the price. Damn it! But I have no regrets, because I got my time, and it was good. It was very, very good. So, with that, let's go and start talking about spoilers and getting in a little more detail of when I was referring to the world map and what I think of the plot and the characters. There is a specific reason I didn't want to specifically talk about the characters, because many of them are enjoyable, and talking about some of them are slight story spoilers, so I wanted to save that for the spoiling section. So, if you don't want anything spoiled, this is where we part ways. If you want to hear my opinions on these, or you don't care about spoilers being spoiled for you, let's march on. So, party members. Oh boy, pretty decent away. I really liked everyone, though everyone grew on me different ways. Like Savando, I originally did not like, but then he grew on me. Oh, actually, fuck, there is one thing I forgot. Oh my goodness. I forgot one more thing. There was a special... Oh, I feel bad because I didn't mention it before the spoiler. Oh, fuck, man. Damn it. There is one more thing. The Switch version has a few unique Kyoto Quest stories, though only in the Switch version. These stories happen in the midpoint of the game. Actually, maybe it was better to not talk, because they're a bit of a spoiler too. So maybe that works out. Though I probably should have mentioned something about them. There are a few unique Kyoto stories that happen at the midpoint of the game, where you control several of your party members in unique little situations. Pad didn't like them. I liked half of them. So the Kyotos that get these are Jade, Savando, Wab, and Eric. I liked it, Wabs and Savandos. I think they added to their characters and their backstory in being familiar with their personalities. Eric's, I think, was the worst because it felt like it didn't really do anything. And Jade's... Pad's complaint was they spoiled finding out what's happening to the characters and what they've been doing. And I feel like that really applies to Jade's heavily. Because, well, the whole situation that's happening with her when you go find her, when you get control of the main character again, it just kind of wounds what you're going to expect going on now. So, I definitely agree highly with Jade. But Savandos, I've said repeatedly in my playthrough, but Savandos, I felt like was actually something kind of tragic not to even exist in the base game. Because, so Savando was the first character I looked at and was like, you know, I'm kind of questionable if I'm going to like Savando. He's a stereotypical kind of, like, gayish looking character, if you get what I mean. Like, the very, feminine guy kind of stereotype. Now, I'm not going to be one of those people that are like, oh my god, stereotype. That is evil, and you should be destroyed because of it. Stereotypes, oh, well, I mean, like, just about everything's fucking stereotype these days, so that's one reason why I don't really have that kind of mindset. But if done wrongly, it could be a lazy character design. So I was kind of like, Savando, I kind of feel like he's going to be a lazy, just ha-ha character. But the game slowly builds up that, you know, he's a really... At first, you might be a little suspicious of him, maybe a little, depending on your thought process, because he does a few things that are a little odd in the beginning. But really, he's just a guy who really cares about helping people. And I'm always for, like, a do instead of tell type thing. Like, letting you do something versus just telling you something, I think, always has a stronger impact. And that's why I like his little storyline. Because you go in, like, the world is in danger at that point, and hope might be lost. But instead of giving in to despair, he picks up his baggage and decides that he's going to go and still help the world. And he goes and helps the world. You go and control Savando, and you go and help the world. And find people who are inspired by, even in the darkest times the world is in at that point in the story, decide to join you because they were inspired by you not giving up hope in the world. And from that point, I just loved Savando. Like, he really is a very caring person once you get past his initial kind of way his personality is. He is just a really carefree, caring person who deeply wants to protect the people he loves. And I feel like that was just a lot more. Wabs just kind of really involved his backstory. Now the second character, everyone else, I really liked it until you got your last party member. So all the promotional artwork and everything, the cover art, they pulled a Persona 5 on you. There was an additional party member that is never hinted at all throughout the game, but Hendrik joins you in the midpoint of the game. After the short character stories, you'll get Hendrik as an AI character, and then he permanently joins your party. Now Hendrik is a buffoon for half the game, being a pig-headed idiot, not questioning his king's logic on things, and then obviously regretting that. And, well, he was, like, you know, at first I'm just like, Hendrik, you're a freaking idiot. This is all your fault that the world ended up in this situation. But, you know, you warm up and you feel sorry for, and forgive him and that. Like, Hendrik becomes, well, as he puts it, an unwavering companion, your sword and your shield through the rest of the campaign. And I have to say, some of the stuff you do in the end portion of the game with Jasper, and I feel like it really adds a lot to his character. So in the end, like, I generally loved everyone, even though I may have questioned how much I was going to end up liking them, or maybe even disliking them throughout the game. I generally liked all the characters. Veronica is awesome. Now, I would say Eric ended up being, like, if I have to categorize the characters, Veronica's sister, Serena, and Eric were, like, probably on the low tier, honestly. Like, Veronica's sister is just the stereotypical, I'm a good person and care about everyone, want to heal the world, peace and that. You know, she's a nice person. It's not like she's hateful or anything. Veronica has a hell of a Scottish-like personality. But, Eric's, while he has more of a story, is just kind of generic. I was told to go find you, hang out with you, and I would be forgiven for something I did a long time ago, and it is so. Now, I don't hate them at all, but I feel like everyone else has vastly better development. Rab, your grandfather, he's devastated that he's lost everyone he's known and is happy to find his grandson alive and well. Jade, the princess of the King of Heldor, wanting to save her father, wanting to save you. Savanda wants to save the whole world. Veronica and her sister want to help you because they're, well, destined to help you. Hendrik wants to save the world and wrong the wrongs that him and the king have done. Eric just wants to save his sister, which, I mean, that's not bad. I mean, of course you would want to help your family. Don't get me wrong. It just feels a little awkward because like, she was left being a gold statue for like 5 years, so I feel like his reactions to some things are a little bit under, but I feel like Eric's probably the weakest, even though he has more of a story than Veronica's sister. I mean, they kind of just ride the same storyline the twins do, but I generally liked it. All the characters, they were very good. Now, a lot of Dragon Quest games have post-games. I wouldn't really call it a post-game, but it is designed like one. So once you beat the great evil of Mordegon, you'll actually get credit roll, and you'll actually be able to continue the game. I highly recommend doing this if you're listening and you actually don't know what happens in the game, which I hope you're not because you're spoiling things, but, you know, I gave you a spoiler warning. Because there's still more to the plot. You'll find out the origins of Mordegon. You'll find out of a greater evil, what happened to Orwin, the legendary hero, and even get slight nods that Dragon Quest XI could potentially be a prequel to every single Dragon Quest game, possibly. A timeline is forming, and insane theories have gone rolling. And this is why I think the 3DS content is actually a legit thing that you should experience. Because in the end, the Dragon Quest XI story involves time travel. And while in the early bits, you would just probably think that's happening just because that way you could interact with Dragon Quest 1 through 10 characters and stuff, but it actually comes as a plot point. And the super boss of the 3DS content actually knows the true final boss of the base game. So there's also a connection there. Now the Switch super boss is based on Mordegon's second form. And that is like the only thing I have really not done content-wise in the game. It's supposed to be really, really fucking hard. So I might try it one day down the road, but the story has a really good pacing in that. Like, basically, they recycle the world 3 times. As I said, the world feels kind of small. Like, you'll get to the midpoint, and you'll be like, and that's exactly what happened to me. I'd be like, well, I've been, like, everywhere in the world. I've been on all the continents, spread it out through the land masses and that. Feels like there's not a lot of places to go, but we're kind of building up to a final battle kind of confrontation here, which turns out to be a World of Ruin moment, which was a different take because I don't recall any Dragon Quest games doing a World of Ruin kind of thing like Final Fantasy Final Fantasy VI did. So that was actually kind of an interesting thing to see. So the World of Ruin moment happens. If you're playing the Switch version, you'll play through the character scenarios of what some of them are doing while the main character is missing in action, get control of the main hero, and go through the whole world again looking for your party members and fixing the world. But then you kick Morgan's ass, and then you reload your save after kicking Morgan's ass and saving the world, and time travel truly comes into play. You get the option. You can refuse it. You can just choose not to, because it is, when you think about the consequences of what you're doing, there are some weird consequences for everyone else. But you can go back in time to before the World of Ruin and make a new timeline where you've stopped Morgan from rising to power, and you'll learn of his origins and the true foe that Owen and his companions, the previous Luminary, fought. And this leads to, again, a whole journey around the world again. Now, in this phase, everything in the world is not mandatory. It's all optional. You can go straight to the end and fight Morgan's true best foe. That's even stronger than Morgan. The true foe. Colosmos. But, if you played the game normally, you're probably underleveled. Like, basically everything in the overworld at this point is giving a happy ending to several things that happen in the World of Ruin. You'll be able to give everyone who had a sad ending a happy ending and that. Oh yeah, and Veronica. I kind of didn't go into that, did I? Veronica dies in the World of Ruin. She's dead. She's gone. You don't have her. So when you time travel back, you get Veronica back. But her sister, like, becomes the greatest fucking mage that ever lived in the World of Ruin. So that's one loss. When you go back in time, you don't got Super Mage. Super Mage! And I do actually agree with Pad. The impact of Veronica's sacrifice in the World of Ruin is kind of thrown out the window when you time travel and fix everything. There's several really sad moments. Like, fuck, there's a scene where a mother feeds herself to a transformed child who transformed into a dragon creature. She feeds herself to it so it can live. Because she came to the choice of sacrificing someone in the village to feed her child's monstrous form. But when that failed, she literally fed herself to sustain her child's life. Like, that was fucking just dark. That whole scene there was dark. And you get to just magically happify everything in the third act of the game. So, I do agree there's some impact lost, though. But Dragon Quest games usually don't dwell in the darker thought process of, like, the ultimate, like how Chrono Cross actually addresses the negative effect of what Chrono and his friends did in Chrono Trigger, for example. Dragon Quest doesn't usually dwell on the darker implications of what you did too much. So, I don't think it's like the end of the world, but I definitely can understand having that feeling that it was just kind of the impact loss. Because it was actually shocking to me that Veronica was fucking dead. Like, nothing at all built up or hinted at her being fucking dead when the World of Ruin moment happened. Like, nothing hinted at all. Like, Dragon Quest characters die in Dragon Quest games. But, I mean, like, having really crazy deaths like that aren't, like, super common, especially with your party members. Your party members directly. So, that was a bit of a shocker and a takeaway, though. But your time travel, you can do happy endings for everyone that didn't get one, or happify endings. Some people, like the ghost of your father, you can get to free his spirit again. What's interesting, though, is the game amplifies after you beat Cosmos. and you save Orwin's last companion from her fate and let her time travel to go save Orwin and her former companion's fate, you've learned that each time somebody time travels, the previous time doesn't just cease to exist. So there are 3 timelines that exist for sure. The World of Ruin timeline, then the timeline you went back and saved, and then there's a timeline where, I forgot her name. The mage character for Orwin's party goes back in time and supposedly saves them from Mordecant's. We don't know really what happens to him in that timeline, but that equates 3 timelines, and then Morgan also hinted someone else used the time travel before, which hints that there could even be a 4th timeline, or there could even be more timelines, potentially. Because, I mean, who's to say no one else ever fucking used the time traveling shit? Who's to say it's never happened more even before that? Which leads to the whole theory, because after you beat Cosmos, go through the end game and that, and the credits roll, you'll get 2 interesting scenes. You'll get a scene that goes to the hero looking over the ocean to the Dragon Lord's castle, and you'll also get a scene that, while it doesn't explicitly say it is, mostly everyone agrees is the fucking mother of the Dragon Quest Hero 3 waking Dragon Quest Hero 3's the protagonist up. Like, I solely believe that is what that one cutscene is. But there was some debate and different theory-mongering of it. But in potential, these different timelines could be the prequel of several Dragon Quest games, or all Dragon Quest in together, because after the original trilogy, connections from one main line to another, if not using some time-travel-y mumbo-jumbo, has been very limited. World maps are different, and there's never been a concrete kind of every game is connected to each other in the same world kind of sense. Now we're going into some weird, crazy Legend of Zelda timeline-esque theory mongering going here, and it's very interesting, to be honest. It's actually very interesting, because for a long time people have tried to connected all the entries into some kind of timeline, and it just doesn't work very well when so many world maps are so drastically different that many millions of possibly billions of centuries have to have gone by for land masses to have shifted so much. So, yeah, that's pretty much the spoiler stuff. That's spoiler stuff. I really liked the overarching story. Like I said, the world is small. I mean, you go through it 3 times, but it is smallish. It feels smallish to me. And that was one of my criticisms. But they recycle it. But it's done in a good way. It's not done in a way that I feel like it's really lazy and terrible. I mean, obviously, that's an opinion. That's my opinion. That's why I would imagine you're watching the video for, of course. But you may feel slightly different on different scenario. Like, probably the worst redone scenario in the 3rd act, I would say, is, like, your father. Like, that whole, like, the scene in the World of Ruin, saving your father's soul, was, like, really sad and really touching and everything, and it was just kind of like, yeah, there you go, you're free, father. Thanks for the armor that looks like yours. Thanks. I mean, it's good to save your father again, don't get me wrong. You don't want to leave him in total limbo, but I mean, just, you know, the whole impact of saving his soul and reuniting with your mother's soul just kind of feels a little underwhelmed at that point, because you've already did it in a more awesome scene that was more like, it was really touching with Wab. Like, Wab's heart was just, like, dying there. And it's like, there you did, laddie. You saved your parents' souls. They rest in peace. It's like, it was so much more touching in the World of Woon moment. So, I mean, you know, you'll have your individual opinions on certain scenes, but overall, it was done really well, in my opinion. In the end, Dragon Quest XI is an incredible, fantastic damn game that I think is worth your time. Now, would you really like, should you replay the whole game in retro mode? That's a whole nother story, because that's a whole different story. Maybe one day I'll do a full playthrough in the retro mode. But it's really good. Now, another criticism, I didn't get to play through the retro mode of the base game completely. I did go chapter select the final chapter and experience with the final bosses, and then, like I said, the 3DS content's all in retro mode. But another criticism, I think, is, okay, so enemies don't have animations in battle in retro mode, and that's, like, heartbreaking. Because, I mean, fucking Super Nintendo entries of Dragon Quest have had enemy animations. Like, Dragon Quest VII, the whole thing that was awesome with Dragon Quest VII is the graphical upgrade of the battle sprites and all having animations and shit. Even though the Outer World sprites in Dragon Quest VII looked like crap on the PS1, the in-game sprite animations and everything was so good. So good. That was like the whole fucking game, though. It's such a shame. But oddly enough, now, Cosmos and the super boss for the 3DS content have animation. So I don't know if those certain character bosses maybe might have animations in the retro mode, possibly. But like I said, the only things I got to experience were the 3DS content in the beginning and the end of the base game. Like the whole mountain climbing bit, I did that in 2D mode. Just to show it off when I first started streaming the game. And then at the end, after we did everything else, we were like, fuck it, let's do the final chapter, final boss, Cosmos in 2D mode. And he had 2D. And now, Cosmos and the 3DS Super Boss use the same sprites. They're the same kind of creature, so it's not too shocking to see he had the movements as the Super Boss did, so I was kind of like, oh, well, that's not shocking. They always existed. So, I don't know if other bosses have any animations, but even if they do, which is slightly at least a little bit, if they do, I don't know for sure, but I was really disheartened that enemies did not have animations, and I just felt like that was kind of a shame. Now, the Switch ports of 1, 2, and 3, which are based on the mobile versions of 1, 2, and 3, also don't have sprite animations. And I feel like that might have been a carryover from, like, the development of that. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the sprite work is similar to those, which would probably be why there is no animations. It's a shame, honestly. It's a real shame, honestly. But, well, I mean, it's not the end. It's not the end. You still got the retro aesthetic, and the character sprites are done well in that, so you got that. Oh, you know, something else I didn't mention. You know, that's the sad thing about when you do a lot of these more freelance as opposed to doing a scripted thing, but I don't like when I do scripted because I don't feel like it's as genuine feeling, in my opinion, but something else I did forget to mention that's also in the Switch version, the original versions of the game do not have orchestrated music. Now, Dragon Quest music is very opinionated. Some people like MIDI, some people like orchestrated, and some people like both. I like both. Certain MIDIs and certain orchestra have their ups and downs. Like, I find like battle music generally benefits a little bit more with MIDI, while like the horns, like music that has a lot of horns, I like the MIDI versions of it. I don't know. Some people hate MIDI horns, so I don't know. That's subjective, though. You got orchestrated in MIDI, so you got the best of both worlds, so you can enjoy both. On top of that, you know, you got auto systems and stuff if you want to let the certain fighters control themselves or the game control itself. You got gambling. the slot machines, the mini middles, all the traditional things and that. So many things, so many things. It's just a traditional Dragon Quest game that feels like it's literally modernized 90s fucking JRPG game. Like, you know, with 3D graphics and stuff. You'll feel way at home here, honestly, if you played Dragon Quest games before. I cannot recommend Dragon Quest XI enough if you enjoy turn-based JRPGs. Again, worth the full price, in my opinion. You will find worthy content, fun, sorrow, joy, and time travel to fix everything, and possibly retroactively make timelines in Dragon Quest XI. If you made it to this long, which, damn, over an hour, probably one of my really longest reviews I've ever made, but there's a lot of stuff to talk about. And there's still more, much more I could talk about. I try to talk about the final points and not necessarily diddle-daddle on the small points as much. Like, you know, I could go in about how the quests, pretty much fetchy MMO quests and the mini-middle system, because you can, in the end game, you can basically get infinite mini-middles, well, in previous games there's always been a finite number of them. So if you were missing one, you had to go find the exact one you're missing. But, you know, anyway, go get Dragon Quest XI for the love of humanity. Do it! And thank you if you've listened to this time video. I know, like, there's always people who will drop off after a certain point because some people just can't listen to that long of a video, and that's fine. You know, different people have different amounts of time, free time. You know, when it comes to these kind of things, I usually listen to them when I'm on like long drives, or if I'm editing, or sometimes even if I'm playing some other game or something. But thank you for staying tuned. If you feel like you've learned anything interesting, please feel free to leave a like. And if you feel like you learned nothing at all, feel free to leave a dislike, guilt-free. But come on, you should have learned something in here. You know how many people I went into that don't actually know Squire, Enix themselves never developed any of the mainline entries? I mean, come on. Most people don't even know Chunsoft developed 1 through 5. Come on. Give me the... No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, thank you for staying joined. Hopefully I'll see you next time here at the Proving Grounds. And you can all have a delightful day. And I hope some of you who are looking forward to the gameplay footage for 11, because I've had a few people looking forward to it, will be starting near the end of March this month. It'll be sometime after the Fallout 76 videos, which I will tell you the final Fallout 76 video is on the 31st. So, yeah, so it'll be beginning technically actually next month. And so... in April, a fitting month to start the Dragon Quest videos coming out on YouTube. And they should be showing up on Twitch hopefully sometime soon. I've been putting things on Twitch. Anyway, I'll stop going on. Thank you for joining. Till next time, have a delightful day. And let me know if you have any questions, as there are still many things people may want to know about the game. So feel free to also ask a question and leave a comment down below. Thank you for joining. Until next time, at the Proving Grounds.
どうだった？私の作った朝ごはん。感想だよ。感想。そうか、そう